What inspired me to write this book was my son. My son and all those people out there that suffer from asthma. I suffered from asthma myself up until 7 years old, and I know what it feels like firsthand to not be able to breathe. I was devastated when Tyson had his first asthma attack, and I had to learn so much on how to prevent or to minimize the triggers. And so I felt like with all that knowledge, it would be nice to share that with other people that might be having the same issues. There's so many messages that I want people to get out of this book, but everybody's in a different place. I would say that ask and you shall receive, because so many times people don't ask. And if you don't ask, you might not get the answers, and you need the answers in order to have a better life. Some of the other messages that people might get from the book is just perseverance, persevering through tough times, and that we don't know what we're made of until we're put through trials and tribulations. And going through the things that I've gone through in this book, I'm hoping that it encourages others to fight the good fight. One that comes to mind is one time when we had to rush Tyson to the hospital, and it was me, I was there. Asthma always happens at night, and he was getting worse and worse and worse, and I had his sister, Tiana, and I had to gather her up and put her in the car seat in the back, and then I had to go get Tyson and pick him up and put him in the front seat. And because of the gagging response of not being able to breathe and coughing so much, he was throwing up. And so I remember I'm driving, I have a bucket in my hand, and I'm keeping the bucket under him and driving to the hospital. We get to the hospital, and I picked up Tyson, and I had Tiana in my hands, and I didn't realize she had grabbed the bucket. And we get into emergency, and I'm getting attention, letting everybody know, you got to take care of my son. And right then my daughter, who I didn't know she had the bucket, she dropped the bucket, and everything inside just went all over the floor. It was terrible then, but now looking back, it's really funny. 3 things that I would like people to learn from this book is, number 1, don't be a victim. Fight the good fight. That's number 1. Number 2 is get the knowledge you need in order to fight that fight. And realize that you're not alone. There's other people. I had no idea how many people there are that suffer from this. And now that I've written the book and people are coming forward and letting me know that they've lost a loved one, and the doctor never told me that my son could die. That was never, they didn't want to scare me, I guess. But we have to be careful, and we have to do what we can to prevent the triggers. And that's a big one in the book, is learning the allergy triggers that cause the asthma. It's not the same for everyone. Another thing is dust. My son was allergic to dust, okay? Dust, everybody has dust. But learning what you can do and what equipment you can use and your options on keeping the dust to a minimum is really a good thing. Dust is a very common trigger for asthma. And one little golden nugget I could give you is your pillow, because asthma always is worse at night and you're laying on your pillow. So make sure that you put your pillow in the dryer every 3 months, and you should buy a new pillow every year. And no, I don't have stock in pillows. A couple of helpful hints that you can use to improve your indoor air quality is, number 1, open up your windows. Let the fresh air, even if it's smoggy, it's better than keeping things held into your house. So air your house out. Let fresh air come into your home. Open up the windows, open up the doors as often as you can. Secondly, vacuum on a regular basis. And I have a water vacuum. It's called the Rainbow, and I highly recommend those, because they hold on to all the dust and all the particles that can fly in the air. Another thing you can do is get an air purification system, but do your homework, because they're not all the same. There is hope for the 20 million people that suffer from asthma out there. I've learned this by doing the research, because when I was going through this, it was many years ago, and information wasn't as readily available. But now on the internet there is so much information, and going to Learning to Breathe, my book, there's so many helpful hints in there that will help you. And yes, there is hope. The main thing is to get the knowledge. For lack of knowledge, people perish. Get the knowledge. Understand what is affecting your asthmatic, whether it's you or your child or your family member, whoever it may be. Make sure that you get tested for allergies. Make sure that you know what triggers there are. Even it could be a tree outside the window of your bedroom. It could be as simple as that. Just make sure that you understand what it is that's causing them and minimize those triggers, and you will have a better living environment for your loved one or for yourself. One of the best sayings that I've ever heard is that your attitude determines your altitude, and I really believe that, because we have a choice on how we deal with every day. When we get up in the morning, are we a victim or are we thankful? And what are we thankful for? Because no matter what's going on in our lives, there are things that are good. So I would say look for the good and fight for the things that aren't the way you want them, and make them as good as you can. You know, deal with what you can that you have control over, and the other things you've got to just let go. I've touched on health, I've touched on spiritual health, growth, intellectual knowledge. I've touched on all these things, so I believe that there's so many different aspects to this book that can touch so many different people on so many different levels, that I believe that there is nobody that could read this book and not walk away with something from it. Where you get the book is SueFries, spelled like fries, one word, .com. Go there and get this book.
Just breathe.